Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back here to the U.S. Major Tour here, the Indy Porterfield Memorial at Buttonwillow Raceway Park, brought to you by Cow Club here of the SCCA on the Racing Network, in partnership or sponsorship with Porterfield Racing Brake Pads. My name is Tristan Parker here, bringing you today's broadcast. Normally, the indomitable Brian Bielansky would be alongside me, but unfortunately he is not available today. He is out covering some exciting racing out there for the Hoosier Super Tour over in Florida, so it's just me today. Our third race of the day about to get underway, and as you may have heard if you were checking out our earlier races or you're here somewhere around the track, it is coming down out there. It is raining cats and dogs here in the Central Valley today, which is posing a significant challenge to the drivers. Huge issue too in terms of mud, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Instead, let's start here with your order for group number 3. The big bore closed wheel category. Some big heavy cars out there. Starting in 10th place, number 21, Mike Henderson. In 9th, number 8, Don Van Nortwick. In number 55, or in 8th, number 55, Dallas Carroll. In 7th, number 11, Matt Kehoe. In 6th, number 74, Ian Barbary. In 5th, number 73, Chris Qualls. In 4th, number 32, Michael Lewis. In 3rd, number 22, Ole Thordarson. And then in 2nd place, number 79, Tony D. Colicchio. And starting it all off in pole position, number 1, number 1 overall, but it's number 8 on the car, Tristan Littlehill from San Jose, California, representing the SFR region here. So one of our Northern California folks who is probably a sight more used to these wet conditions down here than some of us are today, I must say. So we'll see if that sort of plays a factor here in the course of the race. Again, I was speaking just a little bit here about mud and how problematic the mud has been for these drivers, and it has truly been problematic, ladies and gentlemen, because the usual kind of incidents that happen here where drivers go off course, those are being magnified because the dust of Buttonwillow has now become a very thick and sort of clingy mud. So every time a car goes off the track here today, they get stuck, essentially. We've had the tow truck out there multiple times in almost every single race. Part of the reason we were a little bit late to get this one off the ground actually was because a tow truck had to go out there and get a car unstuck. We even had a photographer's car gets stuck. The good news here, though, is over in the distance, over yonder here at Buttonwillow, and I want to say the west. Not my best geographical positioning up here, I must admit. You can't see it. It's basically the opposite direction from where our camera is facing, down towards the grid and leading into the sunrise turn. But over yonder, I see some sunlight cracking through. It's much brighter over there. So that's something to keep a weather eye on here, because it was punishing for our last race, and it is punishing right now. It might be brighter over there, but it's still raining cats and dogs over here, and the green flag coming out right now. Speaking of, here starts the race. Tristan Littlehill in the lead there. Tony D. Colicchio coming just behind, and you'll get a view of them coming across on your cameras, I assume, shortly as they sort of tear up into the sunrise turn. We are running the 25A clockwise configuration here. I'll pull up a track map for you to get an idea. We'll point out one little error on that track map. The off-ramp section is not being used. Instead, there's actually extension out to the A section. So one of the longest potential track configurations here at Buttonwillow really tends to keep drivers on their toes. We've seen some hiccups occurring, and usually there's like 1 or 2 turns that are really problematic here. When we saw the dog leg, it was coming up out of the dog leg. That was a huge, when we saw the bus stop, I should say, it was coming up out of the bus stop. That was a huge issue. That has not been the case here today. In fact, the incidents have been happening across multiple turns in multiple different locations. Now, whether that's the product of us having a just very wet track out there, and it's a little hard to keep track of what's going on, I'm not really sure, but it's been a mixed bag of incidents here so far today. We're not even going to get into what happened in race number 1, which was a bit of a catastrophe, but again, there is sunlight peeking through the clouds. The cover is breaking over there in the west, so hopefully we'll be maybe seeing a little bit of change here and a lightening of the rain, and that would be good for the drivers. I mean, we've got 7 races here today. This is race number 3, so 4 more to go, including our Spec Racer Fords, one of our biggest classes, our Spec Miatas in there as well. The drivers in this class, group number 3, the big bore closed wheels, they actually have a little bit of an advantage here because they are mostly, I think almost all of them, are cars that have, proper body work to them. They're not open to the elements, which has been a significant issue for our first 2 groups who kind of had a lot of rain going straight into their faces. The same cannot be said here. These guys have windshields, so that makes all the difference when it's pouring with rain out there. Tristan Littlehale coming across the line here for our first lap. Tony DiColiscio coming across as well. Unfortunately, our rain has claimed its first victim here. Poor number 21. Let me get a confirmation of this really quick, and I apologize for the pause right there, but the information kind of filters through my ears and then out to my mouth, and sometimes it's always not the fastest follow-up. So it's number 73, the single Class AS car out there. That's Chris Qualls, who has run into a bit of trouble. Went off and on near turn 12, so that would be over towards the Grapevine, which you can just see on the far right side of the camera shot there. That's the sort of elevation perspective. It looks like Chris Qualls went a little bit off right there. Got smacked with a bunch of mud, couldn't really see where he was going, and ended up running off the road at a gentle pace. He's perfectly fine, but it does look like it might be the end of that particular, I believe it's a 2006 Ford Mustang for the day. You can just see out in the distance there's a crop duster at work as well, so maybe we'll be seeing a plane flying over the racetrack. They sometimes like to get involved, and keeping an eye on our racers, looking for any exciting action that will be happening here. Group number 3 is a relatively diverse grouping here in terms of the classes that are involved. It's GT2s, GT1s, ITEs, GT3s, then there's one T1 and one AS. Speaking of the GT2s, though, they just came across the line. Tristan Littlehale still leading that class. 2:08.217 is the time there. Being chased by about 2.352 seconds by Tony DiColiscio, who's trying to catch up. More bad news for number 73, Christopher Qualls. It appears that his car might actually be stuck out there in the mud. We did talk about the mud a little bit earlier, so hopefully they can maybe lift him up. The good news, though, for everyone out here is that the rain has lightened up, if not stopped, which is exactly what the drivers needed to sort of slow things down. Unfortunately, the track is soaked. There's a lot of water pooling in various places. The center of Buttonwillow Raceway Park now has a new lake, which it didn't have earlier today. But it's meant that the conditions are going to lighten up just a little bit, and I think the race, as a result, is going to be a little bit easier for these drivers. Looking down the board, not a lot of close races here. The closest actually remains Tony DiColiscio trying to catch up with Tristan Littlehale, but 2.352 seconds is a not insignificant gap to have to make up. The next closest driver, that's Ole Thordarson. from Trabuco Canyon, California, in a 1998 Chevy Corvette. He's well out of pocket there, about 17 seconds behind Tony DiColicio, so I don't think he'll be catching up anytime soon. Well, it is really starting to clear up here. All of a sudden, the rain just moving off, and according to the forecast, that might be the end of it here for today. We might not be seeing any more rain, which I think would be a very, very good situation here. Speaking of, though, the rain has claimed another victim out there on the track. We've got one car off over by number 15 turn, which is just after sunrise, so you can just kind of see it on the camera right there on the right-hand side of that rather ill-placed support. Not sure which car it is. It might be number 32, Michael Lewis. Maybe now for, I want to say, fourth or fifth time here today in these first three races, a tow truck is being deployed to the track again. So our emergency service workers being put through their paces here today out here at the Buttonwillow Raceway. Looks like number 32, Michael Lewis, that is not the car that went off. He is instead taking a pit issue. That's one of the GT1s right there. Not clear exactly why Michael Lewis has had to come in, but going to go back now and look at number 79 versus number 8. That's Tony DiColicio versus Tristan Littlehale, respectively. Tony DiColicio actually making up a significant amount of time over the last couple of laps, coming in about 0.682 seconds behind the leader the last time they came across the finish line. They're both racing in the GT2 categories. Tristan Littlehale is running a 2005 BMW M3. Tony DiColicio is running a 1997 BMW M3. So similar cars, a little bit different age, and that's a fun little race shaping up there at the lead, and we'll do our best to keep an eye on it here. I do again apologize, we don't have our normal camera spread up. I know that the grid and the raceway there is not the most exciting view that a human being could have of a car race, but Brian Bielansky, who usually brings along the majority of his camera equipment, is unfortunately not here today. And by the way, just to add a fun little tidbit to the end of that, car number, it looks like, I think, Christopher Call's car, or perhaps Ole Thardarson's car. I'm not sure which one. One of them is so stuck in the mud that it's going to be left there until the worker break that will be coming up after race up group number 4, until somebody can go out and actually pry that sucker out. So that gives you, I think, a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with here today. Absolute mess out there on the racetrack. Absolute mess. Tristan Littlehale continuing to maintain his lead over Tony DiColicio, though. Still, that gap looking about the same that it was on the last lap, so perhaps Tony is setting up for some sort of play here. Tony DiColicio, for those of you who are interested, is coming from TC Design Motorsports as a sponsor. Meanwhile, Tristan Littlehale, also of the TC Design Motorsports Garage, both of them coming from the SFCR region, so Northern Californians both. Worth putting out that both our lead drivers have slowed down significantly in terms of their overall lap times, just due to the sort of nature of what's happening on the course and a couple of yellows that have been thrown out there for tow trucks. The fastest lap so far was the second lap of Tristan Littlehale, which was 2:08.217. For reference, his last lap, which was his fourth lap, was 4:26.433. So you can see the difference there that track conditions are causing, and the track conditions and the respective issues. But I talk about timing here, ladies and gentlemen. I spend all that time on that little point, and then Tristan Littlehale comes blasting across the line with a 2:05.875. So blazing a trail to glory. Tony Colicchio, though, just kind of trying to grab onto the tail end of that trail. 1.111 second gap in between the two of them. And then a bit of a no-hope situation here for the followers in this race. That's Ole Thordarson, who just came across the line at 28.997 behind Tony Colicchio. So there's not much to be said there, but looking at those top two, there's a bit of a race going on between them, and it's worth paying attention to as we watch them come down out of the grapevine. Remember, there's a little bit of elevation change there in the grapevine as well, and that can be a challenge. And coming down the dogleg, actually, Tony Colicchio putting on a burst of speed. I think he's trying to catch up, and they got very close coming down there into Riverside, which is turn number 9, kind of a wide looping turn. Part of the problem now as well between these two drivers is they are looking at traffic out there. Many cars kind of getting past at the moment, which I think is causing, I don't want to say chaos, but it's certainly posing some problems there for both Tony Colicchio and Tristan Littlehale. So they'll have to keep that in order as well. Should be easy enough to get around those cars, but obviously a factor for any experienced racer. Good news for number 21, Mike Henderson, one of the only, I should say, GT3, had a little bit of an incident out there, was able to come back, though, and hop back on. Here comes Tristan Littlehale around again. A much slower lap that time, but opening at 2:09.184, but opening up the gap on Tony Colicchio. We are now halfway through the race, which means that it's time to bring you our halfway field report, brought to you by Porterfield Racing Brake Pads. Porterfield Racing Brake Pads have been around since 1986, when Porterfield Enterprises was founded, and has earned a reputation for manufacturing quality competition brake pads and brake products to the performance racing industry. A close working relationship with leading professional motorsports teams has led to the development of one of the finest racing brake pads ever produced. This uniquely engineered composite brake pad, using the latest ceramic composite technology design, combines high performance materials to make a better stopping and more rotor friendly brake pad. With that in mind, let's give you that mid-race rundown here. So in the lead, it is Tristan Littlehale, the number 8 car. In second place, Tony Colicchio. In third, Ole Thordarson. In fourth, Ian Barbary. In fifth, Matt Kehoe. In sixth, Mark Smith. In seventh, Don Van Nortwick. In eighth, Michael Lewis. In ninth, Dallas Carroll. In 10th, Mike Henderson, back on the track now after a little bit of an incident. And then 11th, number 33, Christopher Qualls, who is out of the race with the car stuck in the mud. A new fast lap time here for Tristan Littlehale. Lap number 7 right there, coming in at 2:04.954, so an improvement on the past. You see actually Tony Colicchio tried to catch up, but he's now 2 seconds behind. So Tristan Littlehale putting some speed into it, opening up, and as the sun comes out here and starts to shine on the track, some of these drivers might get a little bit bolder out there than what we have seen previously. At least that's my distinct hope here as we kind of keep an eye out for what's going on right there with the crews. Ole Thordarson coming across the line right now. Matt Kehoe in here as well. And there's Mark Smith across. So both of the ITEs. Just to give you an idea of the group leaders here. Tristan Littlehale leading the GT2s. Ole Thordarson leads the 2 GT1s. Matt Kehoe leads the ITEs. And then, of course, Don Van Nortwick leads the T1s because he is the only T1s. 17 minutes into the race, 7 laps completed by our race leader, that is Tristan Littlehale. Looking for him to come back around. Now we'll see if Tony Colicchio is able to catch up. Has been playing catch up this entire race. Had a good closure there for a little while. Lost it though. Can't maintain it. Here they come again. Let's see if there's a difference, and there is. Wow, Tony DiColicchio putting up a blistering lap. In fact, Tristan Littlehale and Tony DiColicchio both doing some serious work out there on the track. Tristan Littlehale came across at a 2:03.463, so wet track conditions be damned. And then Tony DiColicchio in that 1997 BMW M3, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, .261, so .980 behind Tristan Littlehale. Fastest lap of the group, and not our fastest lap of the day, but damn fast, all things considered right there. So a genuine fight between those two guys. Tony DiColicchio has been working at it for 18 minutes now. He's got a little bit of time left here to try and make his move, and I mean, he's thinking about it. You can see him coming down to the dogleg here, both of them kicking up jets, and the chase is very much there, going down into river bends. Tony DiColicchio trying to close up that gap. Just not finding it, though. He just can't get around him. Well, trying to get a good eyeball on Tony DiColicchio and Tristan Littlehale as yet another tow has to come out right here. I believe that'll be for number 21. The unfortunate Mike Henderson of the GT3s went off, got back on, tried to keep it alive, just can't do it. Tristan Littlehale coming across, and now Tristan Littlehale has gone in at 2:02.549. Tony DiColicchio, though, less than a second between them, still nipping at the heels. Down into Sunrise. Ooh, I don't know. Tony DiColicchio not actually able to close that gap very well in Sunrise. That'll lead down to the A section, and unfortunately my visibility very limited right there by a significant amount of trees, but the trees are good for the environment, so they're going to remain where they are. Coming up now into Cotton and then into the Grapevine, keeping a very close eye on them. You'll just see them on the corner of your camera, and you'll get a good idea for how close it is between those two drivers. And I mean, it is genuinely close between those two. 5 minutes remaining here as they come down off the elevation of the Grapevine into the dog leg. The chase is on. Tony Colicchio, like a dog with a bone. Speaking of dog legs, just trying to catch up right there. Does not find it again, though. Every time they hit that dog leg, Tristan Littlehale puts the pedal down and just blast away with some speed, and they will whip round the Riverside turn and head down towards the Phil Hill and then into the drag strip right there. Maybe down by the Star Mazda turn at the absolute bottom here, turn number 3B. Maybe that's where they can get a bit of a pass in here, but I'm just going to show you that graphic right again so you got a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. But the Star Mazda turn there, kind of at the nadir of that west loop. That's where we would expect maybe a pass to occur, or leading up into the sweeper and the S's. If Tony Colicchio is going to find himself in a position where he actually get that first place overall in this race, that's where it's going to happen. Or, I will add a caveat to that, or at Sunrise. Sunrise is a very popular turning and passing point here, but we've seen a lot of, I would say, hesitation on drivers wanting to pass in Sunrise here today, just because of the inclement weather conditions. There they come across again. Tristan Littlehale holding off Tony Colicchio here, 0.711 between the two of them. Unintentional pitch right there. Well, you see the cars of group number 4, the Spec Racer Fords, beginning to stack up right there, but this race isn't over yet. Tony Colicchio not able to catch up to Tristan Littlehale, who's still holding it off. They're coming down into turn number 6 right now, which is over by the drag strip, and then into the Star Mazda turn. After they come around, I see the white flag here in the starter's hand, so there'll be one more lap to go, and you do have to wonder whether Tony Colicchio can make something out of lap upon lap of yearning that he has demonstrated so far here today. He is yet to break through. And we wait with bated breath here for someone to come up through the S's into the sunset turn. Again, it's those trees. We lose them down there on that right-hand side. We do indeed miss Brian Bielansky and his cameras here today, but have no fear. They will be back. Here they come, across the finish line. White flag out. It is still Tristan Littlehale in the lead. Tony Colicchio, 0.541. Half a second behind his opponent right there. He just cannot close it up. He just can't do it. He's been whittling away at it here for 23, almost 24 minutes, and he has yet to find the secret sauce there that it will allow him to get around Tristan Littlehale. And he's got one lap to make it happen, and you can tell that Tony Colicchio is putting everything he can at this last lap, and he found it. Oh, there's a huge mistake by Tristan Littlehale. The number 8 car goes off by turn number 12. It's an absolute disaster for Tristan Littlehale, who has raced with perfect poise this entire time, and here on the last lap, a tiny little error, a big plume of water kicked up, and that's all that Tony Colicchio needed to take that lead. He's been looking for it for so long, and Providence provides in the form of a slight misplay there by Tristan Littlehale, and that, I think, is going to mean that Tony Colicchio is going to take this G2 category as the leader for group number 3. Coming down into turn number 6, that's Phil Hill, so they'll head into the drag strip here, and man, I don't know, Tristan Littlehale is going to be awfully pressed. He's going to have to put in one of the best laps of the day for him if he's going to be able to get it through. We wait kind of now, unfortunately. I've lost them on the I hate to kill the excitement, ladies and gentlemen. But man, that was a crazy little incident. I think it might have even been caught on the camera right here. Here we come. Coming through now, down into the start, and it is Tony DiColisio who took advantage of that error to go across the finish line and take the win, 2:01 on that final lap. So he saw his opportunity, he took his opportunity, and he kicked it into high gear right there. An exciting win for that number 79 car of Tony DiColisio. Now that'll be the majority of the race, I think, brought here to the end. Everybody else is pretty set in their position, so let's go ahead and give you our final grid rundown, starting at the top. In first place, it is number 79, Tony DiColisio. In second place, number 8, Tristan Littlehale. In third place, number 22, Ole Thordarson. In fourth place, number 74, Ian Barbary. In fifth place, number 68, Mark Smith, who, by the way, climbed 6 places overall in the race today. Congratulations to Mark Smith. In sixth, number 11, Matt Kehoe. In seventh, number 8, Don Van Norwick. In eighth place, number 55, Dallas Carroll. And then, unfortunately, Michael Lewis, Mike Henderson, and Chris Qualls, all unable to finish the race at the end here. And that does it for group number 3 here of today's event, the U.S. Major Tour, the Andy Porterfield Memorial. Thank you for listening. We've got more races on the way, 4 more races for you here today. A lot of action, a lot of cars going fast, and that's what you're here for. That was a thrilling end. The rain might stay out here, ladies and gentlemen. It might not. I see on the forecast potential thunderstorms in the next hour or so that would be crazy. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with one of our most exciting groups, the Spec Racer Fords, in just a few minutes. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back here to the U.S. Major Tour. It's Andy Porterfield Memorial Race here at Cal Club, brought to you by the SCCA, the Racing Network, and Porterfield Brakes. I'm Tristan Parker here in the announce booth, filling in for Brian Bielansky, who is not available today, but I am here. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you have been listening to our races here today. If you haven't been listening to our races, you've been missing out on some interesting stuff. It's been a very hectic day here at Buttonwillow Raceway, mostly because it's been raining. It's not raining at the moment, but there's more predicted for the future, so we might be seeing it coming your way shortly. Keep an eye out here. But for now, this is group number 4 on the docket here, the Spec Racer Ford Group's 16 cars out there today. At the moment, they are going at a steady pace, single file, a memorial lap in honor of one of the most storied Spec Racer Ford drivers, a major member of the SCCA and Cal Club community who recently passed away, John Arthur Wills II, aka Jack Wills, who passed away at the age of 60 on December 2nd, 2022, after a 2-year battle with cancer. He was a successful race car driver, a teacher, an all-around great guy, and I know he means a lot to these Spec Racer Ford drivers, so they have taken this lap together as a memorial lap. They will then shuffle into a missing man formation for their second lap here behind the pace car, again to honor Jack Wills and his contribution to the community. May go ahead and give you the grid order here for the Spec Racer Ford Group number 4. Starting in 16th, number 55, Jay Rosenthal, who had a little bit of a mishap there in qualifying. In 15th, number 3, Jim Ricketts. In 14th, number 43, Matt Kehoe. In 13th, number 64, Noah Hambai. In 12th place, number 16, Michael Moshe. Next to him in 11th, number 65, Vince Balk from San Diego, California. In 10th place, number 77, Andre Pera from Government Camp, Oregon, one of our outer staters here in the race today. In 9th, number 17, John Black from Olympic Valley, California. In 8th, number 2, Lee Douglas from Portland, Oregon. Next to him, a fellow Portlander, that'll be number 27, Paul Gowdy. In 6th, number 45, Tom Burt from Woodway, Washington, who's come quite a way for this race. In 5th place, number 111, Robert Edmondson from Ranchos Palos Verdes, California. In 4th, number 9, Cooper Becklin from Westland, Oregon. In 3rd, number 11, Mike Miserendino from Bakersfield, California. In 2nd place, number 9, Brian Schubert from Huntington Beach, California. And then in 1st place, number 99, Caleb Schrader from Tigard, Oregon, his second race here of the day. And that is your grid. Caleb Schrader put in a good 2 minutes and 12 seconds, .481 as his qualifying time. Representing the Oregon region here today, a very diverse group of racers actually here as they shift, coming over the starting line into the missing man formation, coming down through the start. And they will be doing one more lap here to get into that grid order proper after that memorial lap. I'll start the clock here for our race as well. So we are underway here for race group number 4. We'll keep an eye on our starter Tracy Kane out there, see if the green flag comes whipping out. Now, I did mention, I think, at the start of this that there is a potential for rain in the next hour or so. In fact, there's a potential for thunderstorms. I think it was sitting at about 60%. If you were listening to some of our earlier broadcasts, you know that it was pouring earlier today. It's lightened up significantly. The sun is out. The rain has temporarily ceased, but it was still soaked the track and has caused some major issues for our drivers here today. In every single one of our races, we have had to have a tow truck go out and fetch somebody, sometimes multiple tow trucks. 3 cars in our last group did not manage to finish the race because they got, well, stuck in the mud. All the dust that's so often kicked up here in Buttonwillow, it's all turned to mud. There's no escaping it. So if your car goes off the track, you are going to have a hell of a time getting back on. In fact, one of our cars in the last race managed to get back on, but got so much mud on their windshield that their visibility was impaired to the point where they could not carry on the race. Or at least that was what I heard. That was the scuttlebutt up here in the tower. But this Spec Racer Ford group, they are always a pleasure to watch. They are some real competitors, a very tight group. A lot of them come from the same garage. A lot of these out-of-staters are known to these Spec Racer Fords who are regulars here at SCCA events for cow clubs. So they all get along something wicked, and they always provide a great level of competition. Usually a very exciting group, and a lot of back and forth we can expect to see from these guys here today. That's usually the tail of the tape when the Spec Racer Fords are involved out on the track. Now, I do apologize for those of you who are used to the multiple camera setup. Brian Bielansky, who usually runs the show and produces it up here, is not here today, as I mentioned earlier. His cameras are not here with him either, so we only have the one cam. That support pillar cuts things up, but you are getting a look of the straightaway here from the start line heading down into Sunrise, and then the grid there for cars that are getting ready for the next lap. I look down to the starting stand in front of me here from the tower, and I see Tracy Kane has the green flag in hand, so hopefully we will get a nice clean start and we can get this race underway. This is our fourth race of the day, 7 total on the docket, so 3 more to come after this, but as I understand it, this is our biggest race of the day. The only one that got close to it was our group number 1 race. The Spec Miatas who come later, that's group number 7. They might put a bit of a dent in it as well, but 16 cars out there on the grid here for the Spec Racer Fords, and we'll just wait here as they come down up through the sweeper into the S's. I'll go ahead after the start and pull up our track configuration here for you on the broadcast so you get an idea of what we're looking at here today. It is a 25A clockwise configuration as the pace car heads into the pit lane. Tracy Kane steps up to the rail right there. I think we're going to get a good clean start. In the distance here in the Central Valley, you can see a crop duster. He hasn't come across the field yet, but I'm sure he's looking for an opportunity. And here they come down through side to side. The green flag is out, and there's the start, and off they go. Caleb Schrader holding on to that early lead. Going to have a heck of a fight on his hands with Brian Schubert there, though, a very talented Spec Racer Ford driver. And then Mike Miserandino in the mix there as well in the lead. And just from the early observation, it does look like Brian Schubert fell back a couple of places, but the 99 car of Caleb Schrader managed to maintain a solid positioning up at the front right there. We'll get a better update as they come back around the next time. You will see them perhaps just a little bit heading up into the grapevine. That's what is on your screen right there in the top right corner to the right of that support pillar. A good little bit of elevation change in some corners right there. That was actually what spelled the doom of our last race leader on our last Group 3 race, was that little area at the top, the little turn there sometimes gets them. Coming down actually into the dogleg here off of that, it's all sorts of messes up at the front. Not what you would expect at all. Looks like Caleb Schrader has actually dropped back 2 places. Brian Schubert also dropped back 2 places. It might be Mike Miserandino or Cooper Becklin who has managed to slide into the first place position. Don't get confused, by the way. Brian Schubert rocking number 9, Cooper Becklin rocking number 09. I can see how that could get a little confusing, but they are 2 distinct cars. One of the issues here for our Spec Racer Ford drivers today, they don't really have much of a windshield on those Spec Racer Fords. If you're aware of the kind of vehicle that they are racing, they are pretty much open cockpit right there. So when all the water sprays up off of the track, not a lot the driver can do to really mitigate that. So a little unfortunate there for them. Obviously they have helmets and visors on and what have you, but still going to get a little bit wet. The water has certainly not dried off the track by any means, but at least they don't have the misfortune of earlier open cockpit cars who, well, got a little rained on, let's just put it at that, in some of our earlier races into the day. A little rained on, actually, probably a bit of an understatement. As we get our first look at what the group is going to look like here, they'll come across the line, you'll get them on the camera, but it's Cooper Becklin who has taken the lead. Caleb Schrader chasing in behind. Mike Miserandino there to round it out at third. And Brian Schubert in fourth place overall, dropped 2 places back. Cooper Becklin has had a wonderful start to the race here today. Must be very happy with himself, jumping 3 places to take that top spot. Dangerous position to be in here, though, among these Spec Racer Fords. They love to drift. They love to play off of one another and sort of slingshot around. We've seen them play very long games as well, where it'll be laps and laps and laps of setup, all for a sort of sudden burst. Unfortunately, the rain and the mud have claimed their first victim in this group. It'll be number 77, Andre Pera, who spun off the track right there, over into the mud. Can't get the car out. Out comes the tow. We'll see if he's fit to continue. But again, one of the other problems with these Spec Racer Fords, if you get those intakes jammed up with things like mud, you're not going to be racing. That's just not going to be able to happen. Well, good news for Andre Pera right there. His car is able to restart the race, so he's back on the track racing it out. The temporary halt in the mud is just that, a temporary halt. Here comes Cooper Becklin across the line again, setting a blistering 206.8687 pace. Caleb Schrader, Mike Miserandino, Brian Schubert, who's fallen quite far behind the leader, but is about 1.5 seconds behind Mike Miserandino. 2 groups sort of starting to fight form there at the top. Cooper Becklin being chased by Caleb Schrader, and then Mike Miserandino, Brian Schubert, and John Black all together right there, sort of the second lead group, all very close to one another. Noah Hambai getting a little bit of a lucky break right there. The number 64 car going off and then getting back on. The mud not enough to slow down those tires here, as it has for so many other drivers. Still maintaining a pretty solid lead is Cooper Becklin. Caleb Schrader trying to chase, and the gap's just getting wider and wider. Brian Schubert in danger now. John Black, the number 17 car, chasing right on the heels. John Black actually going for a pass coming in here into Riverside. A little bit of a cheeky one actually coming down to the Riverside turn, but it worked. John Black gets around Brian Schubert and starts to put pedal to the metal right there, and kind of blast their way out. And that's not good for, I believe, the SCCA, or the Cow Club, I should say, 2022 champion here for the Spec Racer Ford class. Had to go to the book here to confirm that. And indeed, Brian Schubert is the Spec Racer Ford champion here. Jay Rosenthal is the second place overall for the 2022 season. So 2 to keep an eye out for right there. And it's not a good first race of the year here for some of our top racers, actually. I'll give Robert Edmondson a shout out too. He was in third place overall. But Brian Schubert there now behind John Black, being chased by Robert Edmondson. And then Mike Miserandino, kind of the leader here of the second pack in that number 11. Caleb Schrader chasing Cooper Becklin there as well. Well, keeping an eye here on the race as they continue to go around, looking to see if there's any significant passing or even any close races, but they've kind of fallen into a relatively nice order. Lee Douglas is chasing Paul Gowdy. He's about 1.1 second behind. Matt Kehoe is about 1.1 second behind him, down in 8th, 9th, and 10th, respectively. Jay Rosenthal, who I did mention a little bit earlier in that number 55 car, he's kind of closing that out as well. He's just behind Matt Kehoe, about 0.8 of a second behind, if we're being scientific about things. Really, all eyes towards the front of the pack right here. Caleb Schrader just not able to catch up with Cooper Becklin, who is putting out some fantastic times. Fastest lap of the day so far, 2:05.200, which in a spec racer Ford at Buttonwillow is a very good time indeed, and he's done a little bit better than it on the next lap. He just put in a 2:04.565. So continuing to sort of rack him up right here, as it were. And continued bad news there for Brian Schubert as the Jonathan Black car pulls ahead of him by about 3 seconds. John Black, though, nipping at the heels of Mike Miserandino, wants to get around 0.530 seconds there between the two of them. Just keeping an eye out for the rain returning here, but it does seem like everything is relatively calm out there right now. Certainly the skies are a lot clearer than they were earlier, just scudding over there in the distant mountains of the Central Valley. Turning out, actually, in the tail end of it, once the damp has started to dry up just a little bit, to be a wonderful day here for Buttonwillow. Very scenic, all things considered. Very green at this time of year. Not the usual typical Dust Bowl that we tend to get. Cooper Becklin coming across the line right now, and here comes Caleb Schrader, but the gap between them has widened significantly. 3.625 there on the deck for Caleb Schrader. Mike Miserandino trying to make it up, but he's 8.3 seconds behind Caleb Schrader, and that leaves John Black right behind him, hugging him as they come around the corner right there, nearly nose to tail, heading down through Sunrise into the A section. So we'll see how that develops. John Black has been playing a very sort of opportunistic, pushy race. He's up about 5 positions from where he started. So the number 17 car has been put in the hours out there on the track so far here today, and Mike Miserandino is the latest victim of that. Grapevine coming up right now. The two of them still kind of right behind one another. Jonathan Black, though, he wants his opportunity, and I think it's only a matter of time here. Coming down to the dog leg, Miserandino is going to put on a little bit of speed, but you can see John Black still tailing him at a pretty close distance. Heading down into Riverside, there's an awfully big puddle that's formed down there, just leading out of the dog leg into Riverside, about where the truck stop is on the map. And there you go, John Black clinging to the side of Mike Miserandino. If he can't find the pass in Phil Hill, I don't know if he'll be able to make it into the drag strip or not. But maybe he'll find it down towards Star Mazda, leading into there somewhere. It's a little bit hard to say, honestly. Just for the benefit of viewers at home, to make things a little bit more understandable here, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our track map. You get an idea of what we're looking for in this 25A clockwise configuration. The only alteration, obviously, the A section in right there. But when I talk about that Riverside turn and where that kind of puddle of water has started to build up in a pretty significant manner. It's just between Truck Stop and Riverside on this map, so that's something to keep in mind for our drivers out there on the course today. You are, of course, watching this on the Racing Network. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you've been enjoying the races that you saw here today, or have been listening to here today. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe here, get an idea of future Cal Club and SCCA events. I promise you the package looks an awful lot better when it's put together by a professional like Brian Bielansky instead of me on 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon trying to make sure everything fits where it should. And I trust when I say that the camera angles are often far better as well. Well, waiting here for some sort of break in the overall action. And everybody, though, has reached that point in the race. We're not quite at midway yet, but we're getting there. Everybody seems relatively comfortable with where they are. Sure enough, Cooper Becklin now coming around here, setting another good lap number 7, 2:04.329. Let's see if he can better himself here on lap number 8. Well, we're halfway through the race here almost, maybe a little bit over halfway, so let's go ahead and give you a full field rundown here, brought to you by Porterfield Brakes, the sponsor of today's racing broadcast. In first place, number 9, Cooper Becklin. In second place, number 99, Caleb Schrader. In third place, number 17, John Black. Then we have Mike Miserandino, Brian Schubert, Robert Edmondson, Tom Burt, Paul Gowdy, Jay Rosenthal, Mike Moshe, Lee Douglas, Vince Balch, Matt Kehoe, Noah Hambai, Jim Ricketts, and then Andre Pera, who, despite being able to get back on the track, was not able to finish the race. And that is your midfield rundown. Brought to you by Porterfield Brakes. 8 laps into this race, everything seems to have hit a sort of stable level. Cooper Becklin has done spectacular here today. Managed to punch his way to the top and is maintaining a almost 5-second lead over Caleb Schrader. John Black, the other real successful racer here on the day, has jumped 6 places. He's maintaining a 2.1 second lead over Mike Miserandino, and that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon as they keep powering forward right there. Waiting for some names to come across the line, get a little bit better idea of what's what and who's who. Watching now at the start, here comes the number 9 car of Cooper Becklin. 2:04, fastest lap of the day there here on lap number 9. That's 2:04.272. Caleb Schrader has not managed to close that gap at all, and we are coming up to last lap territory, so dreams are quickly going out the window here for the other racers in the category. John Black, happy to maintain his position, opened up a nearly 3-second lead on Mike Miserandino. Brian Schubert, strangely absent from the lineup right there. Not sure what happened to his car. Here he is. He's been having a rough race here today, being chased by Robert Edmondson, who, I'll be honest, doesn't look like Robert Edmondson is going to be able to make up that gap, which is about 5 seconds between the two of them. Still keeping a weather eye on all of it. You never quite know what's going to happen. Last race, when we thought everything was said and done, there was one little mistake. And that was all it took there for one car to overtake the other and really create some exciting finish right there, all things considered. Cooper Becklin, though, I mean, he looks to be in a relatively comfortable position. Certainly not as close as our last race was, that's for sure. Jay Rosenthal coming across the line right there. Credit where credit is due. Fastest lap for him on the day, 2:11.146. Well done. White flag should be coming out soon here for our leader, indicating that we are on the last lap of this race. The Spec Racer Fords, there's been a little jostling and pushback, but they sort of fell into order and nobody ever went too wild. And here is the white flag being waved around right there. Very windy out today, by the way, on the track, in addition to all the rain, as if you needed more hazards. Cooper Becklin coming around right now, and my lord, he has opened up a gap on Caleb Schrader right there. Nearly 7.8 seconds. Cooper Becklin has just hit all the right notes here today in this race and should be very proud of himself for this result. There comes John Black, Mike Miserandino, and then somewhere tailing in the back will be Brian Schubert and Robert Edmondson. Neither of whom, despite being the champion in third place overall in this category, have managed to muster too much. Bad news out there for at least one driver who appears to have gone off the course and gotten stalled out in a puddle. We'll get a little bit more information on that later. We are on the last lap of the race here, though, so I don't think it's going to have a huge bearing unless it happens to be Cooper Becklin. Cooper Becklin maintaining his position coming up into Riverside right now. No one can catch him. I think he's going to steal this one away. He's down into Phil Hill now, still maintaining that lead position. Happy as a clam. No challenge coming in on the back end. No challenge really anywhere here in the Spec Racer Ford group. They're going to wrap up relatively in the order that they're in now, but we'll just make a confirmation of it here, I think, soon. Tracy Cade reaching for the checkered flag down there on the start line. Should be seeing that one come out soon. Here comes the checkered flag for our race leader. It's waved most vigorously, as it will be the number 9 car of Cooper Becklin, who comes sailing along right there. A successful race for him. Caleb Schrader following him in by about 5 seconds, and that'll set that first 2. There's number 17 of John Black. So there are your top 3. Everything looks relatively solidified, so let's go ahead and give you our final field rundown here at the end of this race. Starting in first place, your race winner in the Spec Racer Ford Group 4 category, it is Cooper Becklin in that number 9 car. In second place, the number 99 car of Caleb Schrader. And then in third place, number 17, John Black. In fourth place, number 11, Mike Miserandino. In fifth place, number 9, Brian Schubert. In sixth, number 111, Robert Edmondson. In seventh, Tom Burt. In eighth, Jay Rosenthal, who climbed 8 places overall in today's race. In ninth, Vince Balch. In 10th, Mike Moshe. In 11th, Lee Douglas. In 12th, Noah Hambai. In 13th, Paul Gowdy. In 14th, Matt Kehoe. And then in 15th, Jim Ricketts. 16th, of course, Andrew Pera, the number 77 car, who was not able to finish today's race due to technical misfortune. And that'll do it here, ladies and gentlemen, for the Group 4 race. Hope you enjoyed it here. 3 more races still to come on the day of the SCCA. Next up will be our group number 5, which is a very diverse group and one that's well worth tuning into. We'll be back with that in just a little while. Don't go anywhere. More racing here on the Racing Network. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Cal Club's California Sports Car Club region of the Sports Car Club of America race here at the Buttonwillow Raceway Park. It is the U.S. Major Tour, the Andy Porterfield Memorial here, January 14th to 15th, 2023. First race of the year here at the Buttonwillow Raceway Park. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Tristan Parker here, filling in for Brian Bielansky, who unfortunately is not able to be with us today. He is out doing some very exciting stuff with the Hoosier Super Tour. So it's just me up here today, but thank you for joining. We hope you've been enjoying our races so far today. It's been an interesting one here at Buttonwillow, in no small part due to some inclement weather, but we're on to Group 5 right now, our smallest group of the day, the small bore open wheel cars. Only 5 of them out there. Let's go ahead and give you the rundown of the field right here. It is number 5, Donald Manthe from Santa Rosa, California. In 4th place overall, number 32, Chris Ponson from Penryn, California. In 3rd place, number 76, Scott Renner from Los Alamitos, California. In 2nd place, number 74, Mark Edwards from Los Angeles, California. And then in 1st place, number 48, Eric Polson from Clovis, California. And good old Aaron Polson, well, he's not quite like the others here. He's driving a Formula Ford. The other 4 are all Formula Vs, the old stalwart starting class right there. The place where drivers such as Niki Lauda got their start, actually. So a storied group and some fantastic cars in this group. We'll talk about them in a little bit, and there may be 5 of them, but they're full of character. There's no doubt about that. Lights are out on the pace car. Hopefully we'll be seeing a green flag to start us off here in just a second. Now, it was pouring with rain earlier in the day. We had a little bit of a clear moment, and now things are starting to look a little suspect again back out there. The damage is done. The mud in and around the course is very, very bad, so if you're heading off the track, you are in deep trouble, and these poor lightweight Formula Vs are going to have a hell of a time if they go off here. They will be stuck fast, and I doubt very much they'll be able to get back on. In fact, one of the reasons why this race is starting a little bit delayed is because we had to take a bunch of time to clean up mud on some of the turns that had been kicked up by our previous races. There are 7 races today. This is number 5, 6, and 7 still to come here. As the pace car heads into the pit lane, the green flag comes out, and here come our 5 racers in a nice equal formation. Eric Polson crossing the line first, followed by Mark Edwards, Scott Renner, Chris Ponson, and Donald Manthe. And that is the start of the race, and we'll see what these Formula B drivers and the one Formula Ford contestant have to show us here today. I love these small bore open wheel cars. I think they're such a pleasure to watch. They really capture that classic spirit of racing, and it's always a pleasure to watch them tear around this Buttonwillow track, and you can tell that all those drivers are having the time of their lives out there, as it were. Just getting a look at our forecast here, it looks like we might be relatively clear for the rest of the day. There's a slight chance of rain in the next hour or so, but hopefully that's not going to manifest anytime soon. The good news is tomorrow, Sunday, when we have another 7 races starting a little bit earlier, but we'll talk about that later in the broadcast. Tomorrow, all clear. No problems. Should be just smooth sailing throughout the day. Sort of cloudy, but not inclement, which I think will be a boon to a lot of the drivers, because I've said it before and I'll say it again, they have suffered out here today. We've had many tow trucks, many cars stuck in mud, far more than we usually have to experience here on any given day at Buttonwillow, but that is the nature of the beast, I am afraid. Our track configuration for the day, if you're just joining us for the first time here on the broadcast, I'll go ahead and pull it up for you. It is 25A clockwise. It's a little off kilter here because that off-ramp section that's marked on this map, that's actually not being used here today. The A section is the extension, so that's something you should take note of right there. One of the longest configurations available on Buttonwillow, a lot of elevation changes, some good straightaways, and some very kind of wide turns to take into account. Now, I did say on an earlier broadcast, no one area has really posed a significant problem to the drivers. The issues have pretty sort of dispersed among all these different turns, but definitely something to think about here as the race goes forward. If you're wondering who's coming up after the small bore open wheels, you've got the small bore slicks with their closed wheels. That's a relatively small group as well. And then finally, capping it all off today, you have the Spec Miatas, and that's a group of 9, but the Spec Miatas are always very competitive, always very entertaining to watch. I apologize, by the way, for our relatively ho-hum camera angle up here from the tower that is capturing the grid and part of the straight leading away from the starter tower into the sunrise turn. That pillar in the way, I can't do anything about. It's been told that it's structurally important, so it's not going anywhere, and I do apologize for that. But at least you get a bit of a feel for what the weather's like out here, what the starting grid is like, and kind of what the straightaway is leading into sunrise. And then just in the far back corner there, you can kind of make out the grapevine, which is a good little bit of elevation that slams back down into the dog leg. So something to watch there as well. Starting us off with our lap times, by the way, first lap here from Eric Poulsen was 2:27.530, but I'm going to just swap over to the Formula V's here. That would be Mark Edwards setting the pace with a 2:39.518. Some of our slower cars out there today, but again, I said it earlier, they are just beautiful machines. They are really just a kind of pleasure to look at because like I said, they've got the aesthetic, right? They're the old school racing cars. And I mean, there's a reason for that because a lot of them are genuinely old school racing cars. Taking a look at these Formula V's really quickly, Mark Edwards is driving a 1982 Glamdring, which is just a spectacular vehicle. I mean, if you ever are out here at one of our SCCA races here at the Buttonwillow Raceway Park and you get a chance to see the beautiful number 74 yellow Glamdring, it really is a spectacular looking machine. Mark Edwards clearly dotes on that car. Scott Renner is in a 1975 Formula V Fox, so that's another oldie but a goodie, a classic car right there. Chris Ponson, 1996 Volkswagen. And then finally, Donald Manth has a 1978 Volkswagen Lynx. So a couple of really old cars out there on the track today. If you want to feel particularly old, 3 of them were made before I was born, so that's fantastic, really. I love seeing them out there, and those little Volkswagens, the original sort of Formula V class, they are a sight to behold. These cars benefiting a little bit from the fact that it's not raining right now. Some of our other kind of open cockpit drivers had a hell of a time earlier in the day when the rain was really pouring quite hard. The track conditions dried up a little bit. It's definitely not as slick as it was for our last maybe 2 or 3 races. The Spec Racer Fords, I think, had the lightest so far, but now transitioning into these Group 5 cars, I think they're having an easy run of it. It's a bit hard for me to capture from the camera up here in the booth just how waterlogged things are out here, but you kind of get an idea if you look over to your left-hand side of the screen near the numbers there, and you can see all those puddles building up. Just imagine that, but that's actually all over the racetrack. Especially up by turn number 9. That's the Riverside turn. Very sketchy up there. There's a good pool of water building just at the entrance to Riverside. And over by the number 12 turn leading to Grapevine, which you can just see at the top right-hand side of your screen right there. That has been a bit of a plague that actually cost one of our race leaders their race earlier on. There's also a new pond that's been established here in the middle of the Buttonwillow Raceway Park. But you can't see that, but I've been looking at it today, admirably, waiting for some ducks to show up, because they can't be far behind. It's a great time to talk about Buttonwillow and the fact that we are getting a new track out here at the Buttonwillow Raceway Park, and we at the SCCA are so excited for the opportunity to race on a new track. It is going to get paved over. I think a lot of it actually already has been paved over, but sometime in the 2023 season, we should be having a chance to race on the circuit at Buttonwillow, a new track, a cool track configuration as well. It's pretty wild. They're adding all the latest bits and bobs over there as well. They've even got Tesla chargers and a whole area reserved for, I believe, an obscure species of desert rat or mouse that is endangered. So a whole set there to look at, and that'll be a lot of fun. You can actually take a look, I believe, on this channel, the Racing Network, and you can find some track footage taken by Brian Bielansky of the track in progress to get an idea of what that's going to look at, but something to be looking forward to for a lot of us here at the SCCA. Taking a look now at our times, it continues to be a great race for Eric Poulsen, the Formula Ford. He's putting in about 219.531. Mark Edwards, he's the fastest of the Formula Vs, has not really managed to top his 239 on lap number 1. Admittedly, he's only put 2 up, but he's trying his level best. Donald Mant hasn't quite caught up with him yet. Scott Renner got a little bit of a chase on with Donald Mant, .212 there behind, but I haven't yet seen Scott Renner overtake Donald Mant, so that's something to keep an eye out for here. And actually, speak of the devil, Donald Mant coming across the line there in number 40 car, a really cool looking machine, and Scott Renner chasing behind him, not far off, .199 of a second between them as they head into Sunrise. And Scott Renner hadn't quite found the spot that he wanted to get around Donald Mant, but maybe it'll come around up as they head through Sunrise down into the A section. Maybe coming up into the Grapevine, there's a little sort of turn right there, a little divot that has been problematic for some of our drivers here today. That machine that Donald Mant is driving, by the way, I believe that is one of our older models. Let me double check right here. I've got a big sheet of all the different cars available on the field. That is the 1978 Volkswagen Lynx, and that is a double X on the Lynx because you can tell that it's cool. And it is a awesome looking machine. It almost looks like somebody strapped a rocket to 4 wheels. Is the best way that I would describe that car. Hail of a vehicle. And, there just aren't. The funny thing is, they're just outside of racing circles. Again, outside of this racing circle, there aren't a ton of Volkswagen cars left. Or not Volkswagen, but I guess Formula V cars left out there that are kind of that exciting or that interesting. So it's always really cool to see them kind of getting their turn. One of the things that a lot of drivers have struggled with today, though, is sort of the conditions, the turns, the mud, the wet on the track. And it seems like the Formula Vs and the Formula Ford are having a bit of a better run of it here in this race. They haven't yet really got bad, but I think I spoke a little bit too soon because I can hear in my headphones that it looks like somebody is requesting a tow. So I want to say maybe our 10th tow of the day getting called in here. That mud, just once you get stuck in it, you are there. You're stuck. You do not get out without the assistance of our wonderful emergency services workers here. We are halfway through the race right here, so it's a good opportunity to bring you our full field mid-race rundown brought to you by Porterfield Brakes. Porterfield Brakes Founded in 1986, the Porterfield Enterprises has earned a reputation for manufacturing quality competition brake pads and brake products through the performance racing industry. A close working relationship with leading professional motorsports teams has led to the development of one of the finest racing brake pads ever produced. This uniquely engineered composite brake pad uses the latest ceramic composite technology design to combine for high performance materials and make a better stopping and more rotor friendly brake pad. Again, that's Porterfield Brakes. You can find all the information about their wonderful products at porterfield-brakes.com. Now, your full field rundown. Starting in first place, number 48, Eric Poulsen. In second place, number 74, Mark Edwards. In third place, number 40, Donald Manth. In fifth place, number 76, Scott Renner. Chris Ponson just actually messes up my count. He's now in third place. Donald Manth is in fourth place. And number 76 is Scott Renner. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Your full field rundown brought to you by Porterfield Brakes. And it sure may shock you to hear this, ladies and gentlemen, but this YouTube live stream, as great as it is, even with my janky production abilities, trust me, tune back in next time when Brian Bielanski is here with his proper soundboard and proper production broadcast setup. But as janky as it is not the best way to experience the SCCA and the Cal Club. You should really take an opportunity to get involved. If you love car racing, you want a good weekend away once a month, you gotta come out here to Buttonwillow or whatever your regional SCCA group races at, and you get to see fast cars go fast around a track. It's great fun. The people are wonderful. There are tons of volunteer opportunities. We got flaggers, we've got tech crew, we've got sound people out there right now racing and scoring, a bunch of grid workers, a bunch of really wonderful people, always looking for more volunteers. If you're interested in being part of all of that, I highly encourage you to go to www.calclub.com and find all the information about signing up as a volunteer. I did it myself. I have never regretted it for 1 minute. And if you are not a member of the Cal Club, you're not a California regional individual, there's good news. SCCA has many different regions. You can find all about them on www.scca.com, the SCCA's official website. Well, some chicanery is afoot out there on the track. It looks like Donald Manth and Scott Renner, the number 40 and number 76 cars, respectively, may have had a little bit of technical trouble. Can't confirm it for you right now, but I think we will get a confirmation. I think number 76's race day might be over. Donald Manth got a little stuck up in the mud, but it looks like a tow truck managed to pull him out of the quagmire and set him back on the track, so he is in the race once more. Hardly the first driver to experience that here today. Just a reminder as well, since I've done enough shilling and I might as well keep going here. One more little bit of shill. Do go ahead and give a like or subscribe to the Racing Network. The Racing Network is Brian Bielanski's pet project here. A wonderful YouTube channel with all sorts of content regarding amateur auto racing, semi-pro auto racing, the SCCA. It's very enjoyable and very informative. It's well worth tuning into and listening to not just these live broadcasts, but all the races that are covered on the Racing Network and all the content that is provided by the Racing Wire podcast that Brian Bielanski runs. Here comes some cars down into the starting grid. It'll be group number 5 who are coming up next. Or group number 6 who are coming up next. I believe that's our small bore slicks closed-wheeled cars. So should be an interesting little group. A lot of cars that I don't think we often see out here. That said, we normally don't see this many Formula Vs out here either. I can't actually remember the last time that we had 4 Formula Vs running around out there on the track, but it's great. Well, about 5 minutes left in the race here. Sorry for that brief bit of non-content, but there's a pretty standard race going on out here. Everybody's just having a good, nice little Saturday afternoon drive, free of inclement weather, and that's what they all want, really, at the end of the day. What more could you want, really, at the end of the day, than come out here and power around in your little Formula V car? Sounds like fun, honestly. Sounds like a Saturday afternoon well spent. All things considered, worth the drive up from the rest of Southern California. This is one of the few groups here this weekend. Also, all California natives. We've had a big influx of out-of-staters here this weekend. A couple of racers from Washington, Oregonians, I guess proper term, and even some Arizonans out there as well. In fact, we had 2 Arizonans battling earlier on for first place, which is pretty entertaining to watch. Here comes the leader across the track. I believe it's number 74. We should be seeing a white flag pretty soon. And sure enough, there's the white flag being raised by our starter, waved in a most vigorous fashion at that number 74 car of Mark Edwards right there, who is your race leader at the moment. Well, our last lap of the race here as we wait for our race leader to make their way around. That is, of course, number 74, Mark Edwards. Eric Poulsen, by the way, our Formula Ford card, I think has had a little bit of a stagger. Maybe went off track or had some technical issues. Highlighted red here, both for me and I believe on your screen, which usually means some sort of issue has occurred to the car right there. We'll get a little bit more, I think, clear idea of what happened soon. But meanwhile, we can just keep an eye on our leader. That is Mark Edwards, who's now up through the river bend turn, or the riverside turn, the wide bend, as another tow truck makes their way onto the field. The tow trucks have been so busy today, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot tell you how busy they have been, but it has been genuinely a constant cycle of tow trucks, moving parts here all weekend long. Here comes the leader, Mark Edwards, the number 74 car, Formula V. The checkered flag is out. There it is. Number 74 comes across the line. Mark Edwards in the 1982 Glamdring. A beautiful car. That'll do it here for this race. Group number 5, Group 6 coming up after this. Let's do a quick full field rundown here at the end. Brought to you by the Racing Network. It is number 1, number 74, Mark Edwards, your race winner. Number 2, number 32, Chris Punson in second place. Number 3, number 48, Eric Paulson. In fourth, number 40, Donald Manth. In fifth, number 76, Scott Renner. And that does it here for group number 5. Don't go anywhere, though, ladies and gentlemen. More SCCA racing action on your way here at Buttonwillow. Up next, group 6, the small bore slicks, closed wheels. And we are just about to start. We'll be back in just a second. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back here to the SCCA Cal Club U.S. Major Tour Andy Porterfield Memorial here at the Buttonwillow Raceway Park. I am Tristan Parker, filling in for Brian Bielansky as our race group number 6 gets underway here. Our second to last race of the day. It's been a long haul out here at Buttonwillow. We hope you've enjoyed all these races so far, and we hope that you keep enjoying them. This is our small bore slicks closed wheel category. Let me go ahead and give you a rundown of the field, brought to you by the Racing Network. Starting in 6th place, number 23, K. David Snow from Orange, California. In 5th place, number 29, Gary Raymond from San Marcos, California. In 4th place, number 19, Albert Correa from San Jose, California. In 3rd place, number 88, Taz Harvey from Danville, California. In 2nd place, number 121, Brian Lynn from Hermosa Beach, California. And then in pole position, starting it all off, number 12, Joe Carr in a Mazda MX-5 1999 model from Petaluma, California. That is your starting order here, brought to you by the Racing Network as we get ready for race number 6. Promises to be a bit of a relatively straightforward affair between, I think, all of these cars. Not a lot of bloodthirsty competition out there. There are 2 EPs, 2 FPs, 1 GTL, and an ITC in a pear tree out there for us here today. So, not the most conflict-laden group, let's say, that we've had so far. Ever since we had some heavy rain earlier in the day, things have held out okay. The track has actually dried out a little bit, though we are heading in the evening time now. This cloud cover out here in the Central Valley around Buttonwillow, making it feel a little bit darker than it actually is. You don't necessarily get a great sense of that from our camera, and I do apologize. That is the only camera we have here this weekend. Brian Bielansky, the regular program of the show, not here, and therefore no cameras either. His wonderful camera network is not available to me, so you get a view of the grid and a bit of the straightaway leading down into Sunrise Turn. And speaking of turns, we will go over the track map for today's event in just a minute so you can get an idea where all these cars are racing. But for now, we wait for them to come around the corner. We see if we get a green flag start here. Just 6 racers, one of our smaller groups on the day. Promises at least to be some interesting vehicles on the track, including 2 of my favorites, or I should say at least one of my favorites. The other I haven't seen as much, but I still love. One of my favorites, which is K. David Snow's 1977 Volkswagen Rabbit, is just a it's just a wonderful car. It is a little gem, and it hangs out, and it's great, and it's always very entertaining. I also quite love Gary Raymond's 1976 Porsche 914, another beautiful car to see out there on the racetrack, and that's one of the best parts of Cal Club. And here's another best part: the green flag is out. We are racing, and across the line they come. The number 12 car of Joe Carr, ironically, in the lead. Brian Lynn right there with him. Taz Harvey in that mixture as well. And oh no! There's an issue already. Heading down to the Sunrise Turn, somebody made a little bit of a mistake. 2 somebodies made a little bit of a mistake, actually, because 2 cars are off right there at Sunrise. I'm not sure who the unfortunate individual is. Fortunately for them, their luck has held in the sense that they do not appear to be completely mud stuck, which has been the fate of many a car that has gone off here today. You can't quite see them. I think you'll see them go right there. There they go, on the reverse, back onto the track, and away they go. There's another car, unfortunately, caught in that tumult as well. No contact, just happened to go off around the same time. We'll go ahead and take a look at those vehicles. When they come by next time, we'll determine our order, but I was talking about the track map, and I don't want to keep you waiting, so let's take a look here at our configuration for the day. It is number 25 clockwise, 25A clockwise. A little bit of an error. I have to point it out every single time, or I'm not doing my job as a commentator. The off-ramp is not in use. It instead extends out to the A section, offering us one of the longest formations available here at Buttonwillow, coming in at just about 3.02 miles in total track length, which is quite a ways, actually. Let's see if I can give that to you as well in non-freedom units. I believe that's about 4.86 kilometers for those of you who are not lucky enough to be working under the Imperial system. But there you go. You get a good idea. Some long straightaways, a couple of cheeky turns, and things have been made a little bit more adventurous out there by mud and by water, thanks to our heavy rainfall that we had earlier in the day. But that stopped. Everybody seems to have adapted relatively well for now. We'll keep an eye on it. We have had a profusion of tow trucks here today. Well, here comes your first vehicle across the line. That'll be Joe Carr setting the pace here on lap number 1, 2:16.123. Taz Harvey is through. Albert Correa is through. Brian Lynn, Gary Raymond, David Snow still to come across here. There's one of the aforementioned. I believe that's the Brian Lynn car. There comes K. David Snow in the Volkswagen Rabbit, and that just leaves the unfortunate Gary Redmond, Raymond, I should say, who was, I think, one of those drivers who went off, came back on. He was not the driver that reversed. I actually want to say that was Brian Lynn, but Brian Lynn driving that GTL is a pretty speedy vehicle out there, so I'm sure he was able to recover relatively okay. As far as actual competitive racing in this group goes, it is worth pointing out that each class is basically racing against one another. So if you have a car like Brian Lynn, the only GTL available, you're not so much racing against opponent as you are racing against yourself, racing against the track, and racing to finish. If you can get halfway through, you count as a finish here. Your place, obviously, if you decided to duck out halfway through in a contested race, it would hurt your positioning. But when there's only one of you out there, there's not very much of a position to hurt. So that's something to keep in mind as well here for some of these drivers. Given that it's not raining anymore, I don't think we should expect to see any of them go in early, though certainly I imagine the temptation was out there for some of our drivers in our earlier races on the day. This would be a good time to remind you all that if you're interested in being part of the SCCA, you can find all the information about joining one of the many regions of the Sports Car Club of America at www.scca.com. If you're specifically interested in joining us here at Cal Club for our exciting races at Buttonwillow and the occasional Willow Springs, you can find that information at www.calclub.com. Great group of folks. Be happy to have anyone who wanted to come out here and take part. Drivers, volunteers, whatever it is, come on down. We'll be happy to have you here. It was interesting to note, by the way, that there was actually supposed to be more entries in this field today, so either they weren't able to make it out here because of the rain, or they weren't able to race. Maybe tomorrow we'll see a much bigger race group 6, just based on the registration numbers we have available. if you need another reason, by the way, to like K. David Snow's 1977 Volkswagen Rabbit, he lists his sponsors as Wife and Eurosport. So there you go. He's not the only one, actually. Gary Murph, who's not racing today, but does drive a 1970 Opel GT, which is also a spectacular car. He also lists his wife as a sponsor. So the bank of wife coming in big right here for some of these fine gentlemen out on the track here today. But you love to see it. Taking a look at our lap times here, just get an idea of where people are hitting. The fastest lap still remains as Joe Carr's 216.123. That was on his first lap. He's not able to really come through here. I can't get a 220.116 next time he comes past the line. We'll see if he's able to pick it up. Now, there is some passing going on out there. It's not all static. It's just not particularly competitive either. So I got to kind of keep a weather eye, watch one or two others going out. Brian Lynn cutting his way up. He was the one who I think was doing the passing right there. Back into third place now. Chasing after Taz Harvey, 10 seconds behind. And honestly, in that GTL, Brian Lynn could probably make up that difference. That's a 2002 Nissan Sentra SE, for those of you who are wondering. So quite the newest car in this group, and arguably one of the fastest, if not perhaps the fastest. I don't know. The Mazda MX-5 of Joe Carr has put up some seriously good timeage here today. So his qualifier, his best time in qualifying was a 215.437. So he got very close to that with his first lap, yet he hasn't quite been able to recatch lightning in a bottle. Well, if you enjoyed the races here today, there's more racing action to come tomorrow as well. A whole new set of races, in fact, on the docket. 7 more to go, starting at 10:30 Pacific time. You'll see group number 1 back in action right there. That is the GTs, the STLs, the STUs, the GT2s, all sorts of cars that go fast and make a lot of noise right there. Those are going to be 30-minute races or 16-lap races, depending. So that's something you should definitely tune back in and check out. It'll be covered live here on the Racing Network, if at all possible, and hopefully we'll be seeing you again and joining us. I mean, some of the earlier races today were absolutely wild. We had some good battles out there. We had the inclement weather conditions that kept things pretty interesting here. It feels a little pedestrian by comparison in some of these later races, but these groups are smaller, so it is what it is. These gentlemen are having a wonderful sort of Sunday, or sorry, should I say Saturday afternoon, early evening drive out here in the Central Valley, and can't really begrudge them that, can we? So they seem perfectly content. Pretty clean race overall as well. I will give credit where credit is due. Last time I said that, somebody did end up going off the course, but outside of that little hiccup there at the start, everybody has seemed to maintain their lines relatively well. I looked right there over towards Sunrise because I saw a guy coming in very fast. I think it might have been Albert Correa, but he handled it with aplomb. We are about halfway through the race, so it's time for me to give a full field mid-race rundown brought to you by Porterfield Brakes. Since 1986, Porterfield Enterprises has earned a reputation for manufacturing quality competition brake pads and brake products to the performance racing industry. A close working relationship with leading professional motorsports teams has led to the development of one of the finest racing brake pads ever produced. This uniquely engineered composite brake pad using the latest ceramic composite technology design combines high performance materials to make a better stopping and more rotor friendly brake pad. So thank you, Porterfield Racing Brake Pads. They are providing this midfield rundown. Let's go here. Starting at the top, it's number 12, Joe Carr. In second place, number 88, Taz Harvey. In third place, number 121, Brian Lynn. In fourth place, number 19, Albert Correa. In fifth place, number 29, Gary Raymond. In sixth place, number 23, K. David Snow. That is your midfield race order, brought to you by Porterfield Brakes. You can find all the information about them at www.porterfield-brakes.com. Well, 5 laps in now, and Joe Carr's 2:16.123 still remains the fastest lap here of the day. He is in that EP car, so he is doing great right there. Albert Correa, number 19, currently sitting 14th place. He also drives an EP. If you were wondering who was winning between the two FPs, it's number 88, Taz Harvey. If you've been joining the broadcast today, if you're interested in more amateur racing, semi-pro racing action, to go ahead, like, follow, subscribe to the channel here, the Racing Network. All sorts of interesting content. You can check out the Racing Wire podcast as well. Also, very interesting. Well, we're turning into Brian Bielansky hosting both those and doing a spectacular job. The triumphs and travails, by the way, of number 23, that would be K. David Snow in the Volkswagen Rabbit, continue apace there. He had a little spun and continue, and apparently, according to the flagger nearby, it was, quote, beautiful. "14 minutes in, 6 laps completed here in this race group 6. One more race group to go. That is race group 7 with the Spec Miatas. So something to keep an eye out for. Some of those Spec Miatas are already making their way over to the grid right now, getting ready for their race, and that should be fun. You can see them there in the corner of your screen, I think, setting up. And I do apologize for the cameras. It's not the best we could do, but it's the best we could do under the circumstances. Well, relatively set here in the lineup so far. No major passes, no major competitions here between these cars. They all seem relatively happy to do their thing irregardless, let's say, of those around them or their others, which is good. You like that sense of clarity and purpose. You like seeing it on display. No jostling for position or weird little bump drafts or whatever else you might see. Just cars going quickly, well, mostly quickly, around the track. Slowest time, by the way, might not surprise anyone. 1977 Volkswagen Rabbit at 257.044. Fastest car continues to be Joe Carr's 216.123. 5 minutes remaining now in this race. 7 laps completed. And darkness is beginning to fall here at Buttonwillow. Still one race group to go. Hopefully we can get them in there and out before it gets a little too dark. Back on track here for our race. It does look like Taz Harvey in the number 88 car has made his way up in third. Albert Correa now in fourth place. So taking advantage of some mishaps experienced by K. David Snow and Gary Raymond right there to jostle the order a little bit. The driver who has done very impressive here is number 121. Brian Lynn, who really did have a not-so-great start. I believe he was the one who went straight off on the sunrise turn because sometimes that's just what happens. He went straight off right there, and he's now back at it. He's climbed all the way back up to his starting position of number 2, I believe. He was overall 2. I'll double-check that. Yes, he sure was. So he's done really well for himself in that GTL class category, the 2002 Nissan Sentra SE coming in big, and we know that Brian Lynn likes to go fast. We've seen him go plenty fast in the past, and he's living up to it here. White flag is out on deck, ready to go for the next time that Joe Carr comes around, signaling that we are coming down to our last lap here for group number 6. Here comes the white flag. There goes Joe Carr swanning by the tower in his 1999 Mazda MX-5. That'll put us on our last lap right here and nearly bring race group 6 to its conclusion. Yeah, we're just waiting here for our race leader to come back around and finish things off. Joe Carr, doesn't look like there's going to be any big changes out there on the field so far. Speaking of Joe Carr, he's heading up into the Riverside turn right now, running his own race completely uncontested, as you might expect here at this stage. He's just passed through that Riverside turn, heading down now through the straights, Phil Hill to the Star Mazda turn. It's been a long day here at the racetrack. We're 6 races in, 1 more race to go. You shouldn't go anywhere after this one is over because the Spec Miatas are up, and the Spec Miatas are a fun and competitive bunch to watch. They had a wild practice earlier today. Some of them were involved in the wild race earlier on in race number 1, so a lot to stick around for. Hopefully an explosive finale to today's action out here at the Buttonwillow Raceway Park. Waiting for that checkered flag to come out. The starter has pulled into the sheathed the flags there and has brought forth the checkered. And there it is, the checkered flag coming out. It is your race winner coming across the line. The formidable driving skill of Joe Carr, pushing him over the edge. His final lap, a 2:17. And that will wrap up group number 6 here. Here's your full field rundown provided by the Racing Network. First place, number 12, Joe Carr. In second place, number 121, Brian Lynn. In third place, number 88, Taz Harvey. In fourth, number 19, Albert Correa. In fifth place, number 29, Gary Raymond. And in sixth place, number 23, K. David Snow. And congratulations to Group 6 on everybody actually managing to finish this race. They are the first group today out of 7 to have done so. Let's see if the Spec Miatas can keep it together. I've been Tristan Parker, filling in for Brian Bielansky. We'll be right back with you in just a minute with Race Group 7 here at Buttonwillow Raceway for the SCCA. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to this SCCA broadcast. It's Cal Club. It's the Andy Porterfield Memorial Race here for the U.S. Major Tour at Buttonwillow Raceway. I'm Tristan Parker, filling in for Brian Bielansky, and we are on our last race of the day, race number 7, group number 7. It is the Spec Miatas out there on the field Now they're just taking their first lap. Let's go ahead and get you started with our grid. 9 cars out there, starting with number 9, number 35, Evan Jacobs. In 8th place, number 7, Alan Lukart IV. In 7th, number 45, John Stott. In 6th, number 37, Jeremy Rudder. In 5th, number 87, Clement Lee. In 4th, number 33, Rocco Ruzic. In 3rd place, number 74, Gabe Estrada Jr. And then leading it off, the terrible twosome. In 2nd place, Austin Varco. And in 1st place, pole position, number 98, David Varco. That is your grid for the Spec Miatas, one of our most exciting classes here to round out the day. The light is fading rapidly at Buttonwillow. It is true. These clouds out here not doing us any favors in that regard, but hopefully these racers can get out there and get it done. 25 minutes of racing ahead of us right here on the evening. They are ready and raring to go. I know that for a fact. Today we are running a 25A clockwise configuration. Here is our track. I will bring up a track graphic in just a minute so you can get a good idea of what we're looking at. There it is for you. One of our longest track configurations. Clocks in at about 3.02 miles, and I have to mention it. The off-ramp is not being used. Instead, the A section is extended out. A couple of good straights, a couple of good turns here as well. Now we look back to our race start here. Our camera, I agree, it's not the best, but you do get an idea of the straightaway just past the starting station right there, and we'll see if they hit it at full ramp up speed, if they get the green, and they are good to go. Sometimes these Spec Miatas, they just can't fall into order, but I don't think we're going to have any problems here with it today. On this last race, they are all probably ready and raring to set it up and knock it down. Weather seems to be holding. No more rain in the forecast. It's been a wet and rather wild day actually out here at Buttonwillow, but the worst of it is past. The track's actually dried out relatively okay. I mean, still a fair amount of water out here, but nothing compared to what it was earlier in the day. So the Spec Miata is really benefiting actually from going last here today compared to some of their earlier comrades in drivership who got the worst of it, both in terms of liquid on the track, wet track, muddy track, and rain itself. Pace car is into the pit lane now. We should be getting our start very soon. The Miata's coming down the straight. The green flag is out. There we go. Our last race of the day underway here at Buttonwillow. Side by side, they come in, nearly going 3 wide there for a second. Certainly trying to. You can see the flurry of spray there as they all hit the brakes simultaneously coming into Sunrise, not wanting to start like Group 6 did with at least one car going off. But alas, the dream will not be attained. One member of the Spec Miata field there did go sailing away, able to get back on relatively easily, but obviously a bad start to the race for that individual. Not sure exactly who that was, but we'll get some confirmation the next time they swing back around. You should be able to see just in the distance on the back right side of that camera angle, the right of the post there for what it's worth. You should be able to see the grapevine, which is the hill with a little bit of a change in elevation right there. One of our trickier portions of the track that comes down into the dog leg, which is a good long bit of track, and then that turns into a wide turn, the Riverside turn. So that's another one to keep in mind right there. We've seen a couple of cars kind of have some issues up there towards the grapevine, but as I said in some of the earlier broadcasts, it's been a pretty equal distribution of errors here throughout the day. No one part of the track seems particularly onerous or evil at this point in time. The car, by the way, who had a little bit of a mishap there in that opening pack, I believe is number 74, Gabe Estrada Jr. We'll get a confirmation of that when they come back around past the start line for the next time. But an unfortunate incident there for Estrada Jr. if he is the one who suffered the on and off, because he did start in pole position number 3. So a nasty drop there from 3 to 9, all things being considered. Again, speculation at the moment based off of radio conversation that I can hear every once in a while. It does indeed feel like I am putting together a jigsaw puzzle without all the pieces, and you unfortunately get to take a look at it and make sure that it's almost adding up right there, and then finally I get to throw some of the pieces back on and make it all pretty clear. And here they come through the line. Number 98, that's David Arco taking a hefty lead. Rocco Ruzic getting in there as well. Clement Lee jumping in. Evan Jacobs getting in. Jeremy Rudder as well. Alan Lukehart. Austin Varco having a bad go of it. Drops quite far back. He had an off and on there in one of the turns, I think almost near the start. John Stott. And then Gabe Estrada Jr., who had that unfortunate mishap and is now in last place overall. These Miatas, though, they are close, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard for me to express just how close they are. That pack is very tight. It's the tightest pack I think we've seen all day. The difference between the lead and Rocco Ruzic, 1.671, but Clement Lee, 0.28 of a second behind Rocco Ruzic. Right in there. You think that's close? Evan Jacobs in 4th place, 0.068 seconds behind Clement Lee. That's the kind of margins that we're talking about. The Jeremy Rudder, who dropped in behind Evan Jacobs, even shorter than that. I think probably about 0.775 right there. Looks like there was actually a pass coming in on the far back side by the dog leg heading into the Riverbend turn right there, and that's creating a little bit of chaos. Unfortunately, Gabe Estrada Jr. in that black car, the number 74, has had a rather bad day of it, because he's gone off over by the grapevine leading up into the elevation and is now in what is being colloquially called by the flaggers the lake over there. I'll leave it to your imagination to determine exactly what that particular hazard is. Here they come across the line again. David Varco in the lead. Chasing him is Evan Jacobs. Rocco Ruzic got bamboozled right there by the aforementioned Evan Jacobs, who also puts up our fastest lap so far, 227.113, as he closes to under a second gap between him and David Varco. Clement Lee bouncing around back there. In fact, all these Spec Miatas down to about Austin Varco, sort of rattling around in the order like pennies in a jar here. John Stott and Gabe Estrada Jr. are the only ones who aren't really in the mix, and that's mostly because, well, Gabe Estrada Jr. is apparently sitting in a hole somewhere where it is a lake, quote unquote. Not sure what's going on with John Stott. He might just be having a bit of a rough race. Looks like a tow truck, by the way, being deployed there to assist Gabe Estrada Jr. So, of all the race groups today, I can safely say that the only race group that actually managed to complete their race intact, every member crossing the finish line as far as I'm aware, is race group number 6. Race group number 7 falls prey to the liquid and mud out there on the track. David Varco feeling a little bit of pressure here from Evan Jacobs as they come down through the dog leg into the Riverside turn. You can see it just go by. He's going to have to fight a little bit here, and his chosen sort of partner in these duels, that would be Austin Varco, not available for him right now because he is way down in the order, so no shielding, no kind of back and forth between those two. Instead, it's Evan Jacobs, who has rather ambitiously climbed 7 positions here in this race so far. A very gung-ho performance from Evan Jacobs indeed. Evan Jacobs, one of the sort of star racers. I mean, the top levels of these Mazda Miata guys, they are all very, very, very talented. But Evan Jacobs is the champion, 2022 champion of the Spec Miatas. Austin Varco and David Varco right in that mix in second and third place respectively. And all credit to them. The Spec Miata guys, they know each other. A lot of them race out of the same kind of garage. They all have similar cars. They know what's what. They're all very friendly with one another, except when they're on the racetrack, of course. And then it's all business. But outside of that, it's nothing personal. It is just business. It is just competition at the end of the day. So, the champion here fighting against last year's third place as they come back through again, and this time it's the third place who sets the fastest lap. David Varco, 226.744. 1 second behind him, Evan Jacobs chases as best he can. Again, the group very tight here, though. The biggest margin of the top 7 cars is about just under 4 seconds. Most of them are just around within 1 second of one another, and they've kind of maintained that pace throughout, sometimes closing up a little bit more, sometimes spreading out a little bit more. But I would say that the distinct average of difference between these cars is about a second each, which really isn't a lot of room for error here as well, as Gabe Estrada Jr., who is now an officially DNF, found out, I think, to his distinct detriment right there, but fortunately I believe he's been taken off and everything's good for him, so that's what you want to hear. Would like to thank you all for joining us here today for these races. Some of them have been thrilling, some of them have been a little ho-hum, but they've all been entertaining in their own way, and that's what we'd like to provide here at the SCCA. Watching closely, by the way, speaking of entertainment, coming to Riverside Turn, it does look like there was an attempt by Evan Jacobs to get around the outside, or the inside, I should say, of David Varco as they came through Riverside, but alas, it was not to be. We'll see if he can manage to find it somewhere else down there, heading down through the drag strip towards maybe the sweeper or Star Mazda. Some drivers do try to pass down there. Sunset, Sunrise in particular still remain favorites, but today a lot of drivers have actually avoided Sunrise. They're coming so fast down the straight with how wet and kind of uncomfortable the track has been for a lot of them. It's been a bit complicated for them to, jam on the brakes, make the turn, get the pass in there as well, all while maintaining the control necessary of the car. So I think that's why it's been not as popular as it usually is for a lot of these drivers. That said, if you are listening to broadcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. Brian Bielansky, who manages this channel, puts out all sorts of interesting racing content. And speaking of interesting racing content, here they come down the straight. I was talking about the Sunrise turn, and sure enough, the Sunrise turn is where it'll happen. Evan Jacobs pushing down the inside, puts the boot in right there on Sunrise, gets around David Varco and secures himself that first place spot at a little bit of a daze. David Varco right there, letting Evan Jacobs fire away right there and create a bigger gap, and it was a tight and neat little maneuver right there from Evan Jacobs to steal that first place. The other individual, of course, who we should give some note to here is the incredibly formidable, incredibly talented young driver that is Austin Varco, who has battled his way back into third place now. He's hungry, I think, to get up into the mix of those top three. His last lap, 225.555, the fastest lap here for any of these Spec Miatas so far in this race. Don't forget, by the way, as well, I know I mentioned subscribing to the YouTube channel so you can keep up to date with the racing content that Brian Bielansky puts out here. Also, take a look at the SCCA, Inside the SCCA podcast that Brian does. Some really interesting insights from the Sports Car Club of America and really great coverage. Worth having a listen to. Very well put together, and some very fun auto racing content for you to consume at home. Well, we have reached the halfway point here of our race, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a full field mid-race rundown brought to you by Porterfield Brakes for the last time today. This podcast is sponsored by Porterfield Brakes. Since 1986, Porterfield Enterprises has earned a reputation for manufacturing quality competition brake pads and brake products to performance racing industry. If you're interested in seeing more about Porterfield's fine brakes, you can look up Porterfield-Brakes.com and see their inventory there. But for now, your full field rundown here at the midway point. In first place, number 35, Evan Jacobs. In second place, number 98, David Varco. In third place, number 2, Austin Varco. In fourth place, number 33, Rocco Ruzic. In fifth place, number 87, Clement Lee. In sixth place, number 7, Alan Lukehart IV. In number 37, Jeremy Rudder. And then in 8th, number 45, John Stott. Gabe Estrada Jr. in the DNF position after a couple of misfortunes right there. And that is your full field rundown at mid-race, brought to you by Porterfield Racing Brake Pads. Some shifts happening, of course, right there, right after I finish the full field rundown, because they would happen right after I finish that. Evan Jacobs pushing ahead to secure his lead. Austin Varco, again, he rose, he fell. It's a Roman Empire situation for poor Austin Varco right there, because now Rocco Ruzic is back in third place right here, and Clement Lee right behind him. Alan Lukehart IV, who was having a bit more of a difficult race, was buried relatively far down the order. He's popped right back up now into 5th, and that is a real mix that we're seeing right there between these Spec Miatas, and things have started to spread out a little bit now among the Spec Miatas. They started very close, but as the race has continued, 5 laps in, 13 minutes in, things have gotten a little bit more elasticy. Racers are not where they were. Positions are a little bit different, and that's something that they're going to have to take into account down there on the field. You would expect sometimes for it to all stay relatively copacetic. Everybody is where it is, much like what happened with 5 and 6, but just not the state here for Group 7. Well, a little bit of a pause right there. So we take stock of the situation here, see which cars are which. Evan Jacobs now tearing across, setting another fastest lap time, 2:23.271. David Varco, it was close for a while, but he's fallen way behind, 6.2 seconds back now on Evan Jacobs, who, now that he's got that opening, is just put pedal to the metal here. A much more tight group, though. They've tightened back up. Comes through after that. It's Clement Lee, Alan Lukehart, and Austin Varco, who are all about within just about a second of one another. Kind of trying as a collective whole to get after Rocco Ruzic's third place position. So third place very much in flex right now between those cars. Austin Varco was up there. He's now back down here. Alan Lukehart has done well, climbed 3 places overall in the race. But obviously the star so far is that first place position of Evan Jacobs, who went up 8 positions here so far from his start. Speaking of start, it's starting to get very dark out here at Buttonwillow. It's not quite unseeable. I mean, everybody's still out there and still running, but definitely turning towards darkness. So should be fine. This race will finish before official sunset time out here at Buttonwillow, but it's getting harder for those drivers to see out there. That's for sure. there's our 1 to go notification coming out now across the network. That means the next time Evan Jacobs crosses the start line, that will be it. We will be at the white flag status, and it'll take a bit of a miracle here, or a bit of a mistake, I guess, from Evan Jacobs for David Varco to secure the position he would like to see here, that first place spot. What we're all keeping our eye on, though, is Rocco Ruzic, Clement Lee, Alan Lukart IV, and Austin Varco. I haven't had a good sightline on that group of 4, and unfortunately, the darker it gets out there, a little bit harder it gets for me to see as well up here in the tower. I see my reflection almost better than I see the cars out there at the moment, which is, well, that is the nature of it. And here comes Evan Jacobs down the straight. The white flag is out. We are on our last lap of the last race of the day. There goes Evan Jacobs. Looking for David Varco way behind. He's not going to catch him. Evan Jacobs should be able to, I think, walk this one in. Rocco Ruzic, I believe, following up David Varco. We'll get a better idea in just a minute, and sure enough, there comes Rocco Ruzic, and then chasing after him, Clement Lee. Austin Varco now back in the mix, trying to get around Clement Lee, but the number 2 car cannot find the opening that they need. Very tight racing there coming down into Sunrise, and in fact, Alan Lukart IV in that mixture as well, just sort of nipping at the back of the heels. So I think we're going to have to wait and see how this one plays out deeper in the ranks here, because it's not going to end, I think, in a very sort of part and parcel way like some of our other races have. There's the race leader coming down into the dogleg. Evan Jacobs, he's fine. He's clear. Nobody's around him. He's got no real challenges. David Varco, I think, in a similar mixture right now. He'll come along carefully in second, happily in second at the moment. Knows he can't catch up to Evan Jacobs, happy to maintain position. But here's where things get a little bit more messy. Rocco Ruzic's got no competition at all, but Clement Lee has Austin Varco gripping his back right now, and they'll come down into Riverside. There's a kick up the spray right here. Austin Varco tries to go for it, but he has to hit the brakes. He can't find the way around the way he wanted it to. And I'll lose sight of him there, unfortunately, as they go around. We'll get an update from him next time they come across. I mean, we are on the white flag lap, so it's got to be something particularly spectacular here from Austin Varco if he wants to move up into 4th place. I don't think any of them are really jockeying for 3rd anymore. It's mostly for 4th and for pride. Well, here we come now to the finish line here. Evan Jacobs coming around happy as a clam, snug in his 1st place position. There's the checkered flag out right now. Evan Jacobs across the line, and he will take the race win here. David Varco going to follow him up in just a second. And then we get to the real meat of the matter once Rocco Ruzic will cross that line. Here comes David Varco. Here comes Rocco Ruzic. Oh, it's a little bit of a chase here, actually, for Rocco. Number 2, Austin Varco. Did he slip around him right there at the end and reclaim that 3rd place slot? He almost certainly did. By a nose, ladies and gentlemen. Right there at the tail end. Austin Varco powering past a crowded field. Clement Lee and Rocco Ruzic, who had a significant lead on him right there to secure that 3rd place spot. So it ends as your full field rundown here, brought to you by the Racing Network. In 1st place, climbing 8 spaces in this race, number 35, Evan Jacobs. In 2nd place, number 98, David Varco. In 3rd place with a fantastic finish, number 2, Austin Varco. In 4th place, number 33, Rocco Ruzic. In 5th, number 87, Clement Lee. In 6th, number 7, Alan Lukart IV. In 7th, number 37, Jeremy Rutter. In 8th, number 45, John Stott. And then finally in 9th, number 74, Gabe Estrada Jr., who was unable to finish the race. And that will do it here for Saturday. at Buttonwillow Raceway Park for Cal Club. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been Tristan Parker. We hope you have enjoyed the race so far as it was. More racing on the way tomorrow. If you enjoyed today's broadcast, don't forget to like and subscribe here to Brian Bielansky's Racing Network channel. Races will start tomorrow morning at 10:30 Pacific. Those are all 30-minute races. Another day of 7 races here. All sorts of classes on display. No rain in the forecast, so it should be an exciting day of racing. But for now, from all of us here at Cal Club, thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful Saturday evening.